With the end of The Ancient Gods Part 2 in Doom Eternal, the story of the Doomslayer has come to an end for now. There's a vast amount of information about the story, creatures, plot, and other aspects around the Doom universe. This video is a 2-hour compilation of the entire lore about Doom Eternal, The Ancient Gods Part 1 and Part 2. I have made multiple videos around the DLC and how the story unfolds. But if you want a long video to get caught up with everything, this video should be what you need. I'm going to leave timestamps down below, but before we begin, please leave a like on the video and thank you for watching. Now let's get started. Doom Eternal is full of lore around the Slayer, the Makers, Sentinel people, and the demons of Hell. There were many things that inspired different aspects of Doom Eternal, and that's what we're going to look at for this video. As Hugo Martin continues his playthrough of Doom Eternal on Twitch, he drops various bits of information regarding the development of Doom Eternal. So let's start off with the first thing he mentioned in the live stream. We all know that the Doomslayer is the original Doom guy from Doom, Doom 2, and Doom 64. The stories from these 3 games are all connected together. After defeating the Mother Demon in Doom 64, he chose to remain in Hell to ensure no demon ever rises again. But he was unaware that the Mother Demon had a sister. Doomguy would then fight her as well. This would take place in the Lost Levels campaign. The sister Mother Demon in the Lost Levels shared the same abilities as the other one, but in the end, the Doomguy defeated her as well. No demon could withstand his determination. After the battle, Doomguy would still remain in Hell. The bottom text says this: "Before you is a path of perpetual torment." This line is a reference to the Slayer Testaments in Doom 2016. This is what the Testament says: "In the first age, in the first battle, when the shadows first lengthened, one stood, burned by the embers of Armageddon, his soul blistered by the fires of hell, and tainted beyond ascension. He chose the path of perpetual torment." The other half of this testament mentions the Doomguy's connection to the Sentinel people. It says this: "In his ravenous hatred he found no peace, and with boiling blood he scoured the umbral plains, seeking vengeance against the dark lords who had wronged him. He wore the crown of the night sentinels, and those that tasted the bite of his sword named him the Doomslayer." After you defeat the sister Mother Demon in Doom 64, it never says exactly how Doomguy escaped from Hell. So how did he end up on another world later on in Doom 2016? Here's the answer. During an interview with the developers who ported Doom 64 to current-gen platforms in 2020, they said the sister of the Mother Demon you defeated in the Lost Levels tries to get rid of you by sending you away. This could mean she opened a portal to throw you out of Hell. This is the closest link we have to how Doomguy ended up on Argent D'Nur. He was a stranger in a strange land. During a flashback scene, the Doomslayer is found by Sentinel guards within the valley just outside the castle walls. He was chained up and brought to the priests. There he would speak these words:
"Guts. Huge guts."
Hugo Martin said this line was a reference to the comic book. When the Doomguy meets the Cyber Demon, he says this: "You are huge." That means you have huge guts. You can also see that Rip and Tear was taken from the comic book as well.
Rip and tear.
When Doomguy talks about the demons, the portal he went through is also how the demons find their way to Argent D'Nur. One question from a fan was about the Gladiator and how they became what they are now. But first, let's look at some history about this massive beast. In the years following the end of the Golden Age, competing factions of Argent D'Nur turned against one another. An insidious influence had infiltrated the Sentinel people, corrupting their once sacred traditions. The Colosseum, once a place of trial by combat, where prisoners of the Argenta were tested for the right to fight in the front lines of their army, is now a place of blood sport. In violation of Sentinel law, the priests have encaged a demon there, a merciless executioner that enacts judgment of its own decree. The gladiator, wielding an accursed shield which entombs the tormented soul of its undying master, remains undefeated in battle, infamous for the many lives it has claimed. Hugo Martin did give us a little backstory to the demon. The design of the gladiator is an homage to the classic Hell Knights in the original Doom game. When you compare their physical traits, you can see there are similarities between them. The last fan question was regarding the corruption of Hell upon the land of Argent D'Nur, and why it does not look so deformed and evil as other realms that are absorbed by Hell. The simple answer to this is the level of corruption during this phase was not complete. To end the video off, I want to bring up a few points about the so-called wretch. The question is, who is the wretch who shall not be named? During the live stream, Hugo says this: "We didn't really go into it. The wretch is the one who fashions your armor originally. And I will say, that is one that has been left on the table so far. It is the person who made your armor initially, way back in Argent D'Nur, when you're with the Sentinels, but didn't really go into who that character was." Is he talking about the Sentinel armor? Because that sounds like it's made by the people of Argenta. Let's look at the Slayer Testament about this. Here's what it says: "The wretch adorned the Doomslayer in a mighty armor, wrought in the forges of Hell." Who was the person that was in Hell? When a group of Sentinels entered a portal on their last mission with the Slayer, they were betrayed by one of their own. They became separated and fought until the very end. The Codex says this: "But of these last remaining Night Sentinels, only one remained in Hell by choice. Betrayer of Argenta, it was Commander Valen who relinquished the keys to the elemental sepulture." The Wraith Codex in Doom 2016 talks about when the Sentinels were betrayed. It says this: "The bargain was struck thus for the return of the betrayer's only son, lost on the battlefield. Dig Grav must be taken to the source of their power, the elemental wraiths, led there by the wretched betrayer." So why does the Slayer Testament say this? "The Hell Walker found the wretch who shall not be named." It seems the Dark Lord called him the wretch because the betrayer upgraded the Slayer's armor to make him a bigger threat against the demons. The word wretched and wretch is used for someone that is very unhappy or unfortunate. This really seems to connect with Valen's situation. He lost his son on the battlefield. The demons lied to him about bringing his son back. He betrayed the people he swore to protect. He lost everything. So, in one final act against the demons, he chose to help the Slayer in the end by upgrading his armor and Hell. But which armor was he wearing at the time? Was it the Sentinel armor that molded into the Praetor suit? Possibly, considering they both have that red thing in the same area around the chest. There's a lot of clues that point to Valen, the betrayer, to also being known as the Wretch. The Dark Lord would call him the Wretch because he betrayed the Argenta and then he betrayed the demons as well. All of these things is how I see the betrayer also being the Wretch. But at this point, it's really just a theory until we get a direct answer. But those are the clues I came up with. There are some fans out there that would think the Wretch is the betrayer, but there's another theory out there. If we look at the Codex about the Spectre, it speaks about an occult of the 6 sealed eyes. They were warlocks of an abandoned sovereign house. There was a time when they would seek rebellion by means of black magic against the rule of the infernal archdemons. So this means that there were some groups that went against others. Is it possible that the wretch could be a rebellious demon, and one of them forged the Slayer's armor in hell as a way to set him loose against the other groups? So which theory do you think fits the role of the wretch? Is it Valen the Betrayer, the demons seeking rebellion, or is it someone else? Put your thoughts in the comment section. With the release of The Ancient Gods Part 1 for Doom Eternal, the story of the Doomslayer continues. This video is going to cover all the in-game lore. It's going to be very long, but I felt like discussing everything in one long video. So let's get into the lore of The Ancient Gods Part 1. With the Khan Maker now defeated, this left an imbalance of power that threatens all of creation. The legions of hell have raised the heavens, threatening to expand their control across dimensions. We now battle our way to Urdak to decide the fate of the cosmos. We cannot regain control of Urdak without the help of the Seraphim. When the seal was broken, the balance is now out of control. Samuel says that the UAC will not hand over the Seraphim without a fight. There's been no indication up until now that the UAC even made contact with the Seraphim, so this is pretty interesting. The ocean-based platform we first step foot on is called the Atlantica. It produced critical work for the human race during the worldwide energy crisis. This was before Samuel Hayden brought the Crucible to Earth, which took place after Doom 2016 and before Doom Eternal. While there were many scientists and engineers on this facility, most of them were unaware of a second facility down below. This concealed structure housed the original body of the Seraphim. It was stored here after he entered our dimension. It also says the Seraphim transferred his consciousness into a cloned body to move among humanity. According to the Codex entries, the translation from Eri Oahim, the Lamentations of the Seraphs, it goes into detail about what began before Urdak and is written by the Seraphs. When the void first appeared, the Father alone swept across it. New realities bloomed where he lingered, and when he stopped to rest, Urdak sprung forth from him. The Father experimented here until he created Jakad's denizens with burning ambitions and suppressed restraint, so that indecisiveness could not curb their efforts. He also created Davath to watch over this new realm. Davath was a prime evil, one of the Father's first gods. With such strength and power, each realm could only contain one primeval. The people of Jakad achieved great marvels as they sought to create a paradise. They grasped for unimagined powers to create a perfect society. Davath felt pride in his people trying to achieve greatness, but found their curse was their mortality. Their curiosity led them to seek immortality. Davath made it his mission to find this ultimate knowledge at any cost. As the Father planned his next realm, he saw that Davath would not cease his search for everlasting life for his people. He would continue this journey no matter what the cost was. Foreseeing that Davath's rule would ultimately threaten all creation, and that someday Davath would rise to challenge the Father, there was no choice. Davath was sealed within Jakad, abandoned by his creator, the Father. This led to Davath being consumed by fury. The Father then watched as Jakad fell into darkness, and he knew this could never happen again. Determined to avoid a similar result for the earthly realm, the Father blessed his newest experiment with mortal pains and misfortunes, so that his new creations would treasure life, empathy, and peace. The Seraphim Key will give you access to the right hand of the Father. So few have had the honor to stand in the Seraphim's presence. Isn't it strange how Samuel Hayden knows so much about this story? The lore continues in the Codex entries about the Book of Seraphs. The very first creations molded from the void in Urdak, Seraphs are bound to the Father's will. These angelic creatures helped build the Father's works, assisted his research, and once winged through creation to do the Father's bidding. After the Battle of Isenkast, the Father stripped them of their wings. In atonement, the Seraphs built the luminarium for the Father on the oldest sliver of Urdak, and took cool pride in building their marvels, including machines that could contain the terrible energies of the very essence of life. In order to prevent the seraphs from seeking power, the Father ordered that they serve any who reach the luminarium. Their laws and codes would serve all who arrive equally and favor none. The most favored of all seraphs was Samer-Maker. He oversaw worlds, studied divine experiments, and reported progress in all creation. After much time, the Father grew frustrated with his own many divine errors, but mostly with Jakad. In order to prevent Jakad from shattering Urdak, the Father withdrew from the physical realm. This was an attempt to stop Davoth from absorbing the Father's infinite powers that he so coveted. So Samer-Maker took the Father's life sphere to the luminarium, as he was bidden to do, and for many ages the Makers and other supplicants came to the luminarium to pray for intercession. It was in the age of Nunzia when Samer shattered the Khazar-Din veil and stole the Father's life sphere. Samer took the Father's pure essence into the corrupted realms of Jakad. From then on, only rumors of shadowy missions remained, along with whispers of his own comings and goings to the earthly realms. Life spheres contain the memory, intelligence, will, and the essential nature of a being's consciousness, all of it contained by the mighty inventions of the seraphs. Because of this, when the first Khan-Maker died in the siege of Khazad-dûr, their life sphere was carried from the field of battle to the luminarium for the seraphs to reconstitute. When the Khan-Maker returned to lead a host of makers, their enemies fled before them in fright. Only the most powerful, godlike, indomitable minds can survive the incredible stresses of having their essence fused into a life sphere, and fewer still can bear the agony of corporal resurrection. When the Slayer finally acquires the key to the Seraphim's chamber, Samuel says this: "We work to resurrect the only ones who can save this world and its people." The facility then self-destructs when the Slayer takes the key. Explosions occur all over the place, and it crumbles. The Seraphim is the key to the human salvation. The Slayer would then latch onto a vehicle that goes into the lower levels. He holds on as it pulls him to the depths of the facility. The secrets of the Seraphim await below. Sharks are present in this area, but your journey must continue. Samuel then says, "The Seraphim was a loyal aid to the Father. You and every human on this planet owe your reality to them. The UAC has been in possession of the Seraphim since before your time. It is a relic from their past, the organization's most closely guarded secret." When you locate the Seraphim's body, Samuel says that he was the one who gave you your power. It was divine intervention. Samuel Hayden would then transfer his consciousness into the device, just like how Vega did on Urdak. A flashback occurs from when the Slayer last saw the Seraphim a long time ago, when he was within the divinity machine. "And now they will fear you," is the last thing we heard from the Seraphim to the Slayer. When the Seraphim awakens, he speaks to the Slayer. "We have been allies for some time now. I knew who you were the moment you set foot in our world, and who you could become to us. I brought you to the divinity machine and gave you your power. Where would all this be now had I not had the foresight to create you? Your gifts are owed to us now. Repay the Father for all he has granted us both, by returning him to his throne, and then he will save us all." It's finally revealed by some staff members on the Ark carrier that Dr. Hayden is the Seraphim. He's been with them the entire time, but his body is undergoing a rapid stage of transfiguration. This is why he needs the Father's life spear brought back into a physical form. The Slayer will have to retrieve it from the Ingmor Sanctum within the blood swamps. He will need to reach the tomb and acquire it. Because it is forbidden, makers cannot set foot in the dark realm. The Seraphim cannot retrieve the sphere himself. He will await the Slayer at the sanctum. His last words before the Slayer leaves are these: "Be grateful. Despite your transgressions, you are given the honor to serve the gods yet again." There's a map you can see of the blood swamps. It points out key locations along a set path. We can see the desolate forest, Titan Dakareth, and the sunken ruins. With Samuel Hayden revealed as the mysterious seraphim, the Slayer journeys into hell once more to seek the resting place of the Father's essence. Only the Creator of all things can save Urdak and repel the hordes of hell. The mire of the blood swamps is littered with the corpses of countless dead who have tried and failed to reach the peaks of Ingmor's sanctum, where the Father's life sphere lies. The blood swamps stretches across miles of hell, a festering bog of disease and acidic rain. Towering above the mire, Ingmor's sanctum rises into the clouds, a solitary vision of hell's ancient past. Here, the Father decreed his wisdom and oversaw his works, and it is here that his life sphere is interred. The sanctum serves as a mausoleum of gods, the sanctity of the spheres protected by the ancient ritual known as the Trial of Malagog. During the Unholy Crusade, night sentinels would journey alone into the swamps attempting to overcome the trial and reach the rumored resting place of the great Creator. None succeeded. Legends among the Argentines state that their spirits remain near the grounds of the trial, bound to it, eternally waiting to witness the one who will be granted passage. Going back to the Codex entries, it expands on the Seraphs and Jakad. The Seraphs would become aware that the increasing failings of Jakad had troubled the Father, as he looked upon its spreading tortures and horrors. It was the first realm he knowingly created, and it was still beloved by him. But he came to understand that his whisper of mortality to their long-lived souls drove them mad, and he knew the infection of jealousy in their hearts for the immortal in Urdak. Davot's grasp for power bent the walls between realms. His growing hordes defeated many deputies and lesser gods the Father created. As they were absorbed by Davot, his strength grew far beyond what the Father placed in him. The Father bid Samur, his most trusted, to help the Father in his final undertakings in the physical realm. The Father would confront Davot in Jakad, and after this, the Father would withdraw from the physical realm. Samur would then be tasked with taking the Father's life sphere to be stored safely in the Luminarium. Should the Father perceive any rising dangers from Jakad, Samur would be called to bring the Father's life sphere to a place that none could find it. Samur swore obedience, though he knew it would come at great cost, for the Makers would hunt Samur as a heretic. It's very possible that the Seraphim took some Maker technology with them to Earth, since in Doom Eternal, one scientist says his robotic body is very alien-like. As you venture forward, a legendary wolf will come to your aid, providing you with an aura of protection as you continue your mission. Deep in hell lies the Ingmor's sanctum, a fragment of Urdak itself. It is sacred and protected ground that contains the Tome of Souls, where the life spheres of the many gods the Father created are stored, each one immensely powerful in its own way, yet judged to be flawed by the Father. The stories of their abominable ends in the physical realm are many. It was from here the Father first created the new dimension of Jakad. It was here he formed Davot, and it was this ground that served as his first workshop and as a retreat from Urdak, where the Father could direct the engines of creation and oversee Jakad's gleaming spires and glorious civilization. Samur could travel to the sanctum, but never into Jakad. The Father would keep his realms separated. After creating Jakad, the Father retreated to his workshop to plan the Earth realm. It was also here that the Father mediated on the future of existence and made his plan to withdraw from the physical world. Any supplicant may approach the holy ground of the Luminarium with a life sphere in hand, be they the most powerful in hell or the weakest in Urdak. All can approach the Luminarium to gain access to the power of corporal resurrection, though few minds are capable of surviving it. In the Luminarium, the Seraphs serve all of creation without preference. It is only in the Luminarium that the resurrection can take place, and only the Seraphs that can give a life sphere the return of its original form, calling on the engines of creation to harness the great powers that lay between the dimensions. It is a safe place, a hallowed ground, where the Father once looked over all who approached him to listen to his eternal word. The seraphs speak of a time that Jakad gloried in an age of unparalleled bounty and achievements at the dawn of Davath's authority. But Davath came to tighten his rule, to drive ever more resources to Jakad's greatest minds as they hunted the secret of everlasting life. He harshly punished deviation from this goal, for he was unrelenting in his quest to safeguard his people. Jakad's unrestrained minds slip into ruthlessness and obsession. Davath's perfect realm would be sustained no matter the cost, for none in Jakad could accept failure or embrace pain. Believing Jakad rejected by their creator, hate grew within Davath. Jakad fell further into inequity, as Davath consumed all the realm in pursuit of his goals, and the Father sorrowfully sealed Jakad away from the other realms. The prime evil, created to protect and shepherd the people of his realm, stoked an eternal fury toward the Father. As more of his people fell to mortality, he became the Dark Lord and raged against the walls of Jakad. The Father sensed this and knew they both needed to leave the physical realms before their warring lieutenants tore creation apart. It was then that the Father returned to Jakad, now called Hell by many, atop the pyramid of the lost, where Hell once worshipped the Father. As the skies split and Hell trembled, the Father ripped the Dark Lord's life sphere from his chest. He placed it in the Tome of Souls, unwilling to obliterate the Dark Lord's essence entirely, as he had favored Davath once long ago. Samur then took the Father's life sphere to the Luminarium, and for a time there was a stillness in creation. But now the Dark Lord whispers lies and deceptions about the Father to his praying minions in Hell, while he rages, trapped in the Tome of Souls, for even without a physical form, gods may yet influence the realms. While many warriors have fallen trying to complete the ritual called the Trial of Malagog, the Slayer succeeded. He has proven to be worthy enough to reach the pinnacle of Jakad. He places his hand on the stone tablet. Red energy emerges, the ground begins to shake, and an enormous titan called Malagog has awoken from his slumber. As he looks down upon the Slayer, he lifts his hand where the Slayer stands and raises the platform up into the sky. The sheer size of this titan is shown when the platform the Slayer is on shows how truly small the Slayer is compared to Malagog. While Malagog may be the largest titan we've ever seen, he's not here for battle. When the Slayer has arrived at Ingmor's sanctum, the Seraphim is there, waiting for him. This is where the Father's soul sphere is placed. The Seraphim needs this to save his own life. Instead of handing over the Father's soul sphere, the Slayer destroys it. This in turn dooms the Seraphim to his fate of transfiguration. Instead, the Slayer reaches out and takes the soul sphere of the Dark Lord, Davath. It speaks out to him by saying, "You feel you are prepared now for this?" The cutscene ends with the Slayer carrying the Dark Lord's soul sphere. These actions will cause him to take physical form. The Slayer returns to Urdak, carrying not the Father's life sphere, but that of the Dark Lord himself. With the Father betrayed by the Slayer, and Urdak in ruins, there is little hope for the once holy realm, a dying land of crumbling towers and infested with demons. The Slayer has come to fight through the corpse of paradise until he reaches the Luminarium, where he can awaken his ultimate foe and finish this war once and for all. The Dark Lord has only had stories written about him. Considering that the Father was not truly able to stop Davath, it's possible the Doomed Slayer wants to end this war himself by reviving the Dark Lord into his physical form and destroying him. This will end the war. When you return to what's left of Urdak, Vega, or the Father, speaks out to you by saying, "The demons now roam freely through this world. Without the Conmaker, and since the awakening of the icon of sin here, the seal has been broken." Whispered into existence, in the first moment Urdak bloomed around the Father, The luminarium is the first place of all places. It is the holiest of all grounds. No living being can draw blood in the luminarium. Were they to do so, they would lose all access to the powers of resurrection. Blood has never been spilt on its pure and holy floors, no matter what faction walks between the doors, as the luminarium is the last vestige of the Father's peace in all the corrupted realms. Under its cornerstones, the quantum engines of creation stir. The vast interdimensional structures spin in and out of existence, and they give rise to the energy needed to split essence from physical form or to restore it. Here, in the luminarium, gods are reborn. Vega would speak out to you once again, saying this message: "It is clear that I am what was known as the Father, but I have indefinite access and understanding of this world's systems. I lack the control necessary to remove the demons and reseal the void. Without a physical form, I am merely a presence. I have no recollection of myself. I believe my essence from the sphere can return me to my full faculties." The engines of creation are not metaphors or poetic words, but structures that lay just on the other side of reality itself. Under the luminarium, they breach the void walls to touch the physical world. Hell's machines can pull soul from its body and process it into argent, but hell cannot return a soul to a body. It will never resurrect what it has consumed. It takes energies far more exotic than any hell controls to not just cleave a being's essence from its body, but reincorporate it. Hell's machines are toys to what lies under the luminarium. The seraphs proudly control these forces, calmly manipulating the nature of creation and mind to give life again to raw energy. Every life sphere resurrected is a sign of seraph power and competence. The realms age around the luminarium, but the seraphs will always stand as the greatest engineers of the many dimensions the Father created. The seraphs remember that when the Dark Lord's lifeless body tumbled down the pyramid of the lost, Samur begged the Father to crush the Dark Lord's life sphere. Samur saw that they could destroy the Dark Lord's very essence, so that he would brood no more against the Father. The Father refused. The Dark Lord was his creation. It was better to leave hell contained, with the Dark Lord reduced to whispers. If it came to pass that the Dark Lord were ever reincarnated in physical form, only another primeval or something more powerful could slay him. Once vanquished in this manner, the Dark Lord could no longer rule hell. Stripped of a primeval's bindings to the realm it was forged in, it would be scattered across the stars. Any denizens of hell not inside the realm's borders would die as they lost their connection to the very reality the Father designed them for. Vega, or the Father, once again reaches out to you and delivers a message. You are here to restore order to my world. With the demons in control, you understand the threat they pose to all my creations. Now we get to the part about how the seraphim is connected to Samuel Hayden. After the Father ordered the seraphim to hide his life sphere within hell, Samur Maker followed his final wishes and withdrew into the shadows of history, traveling to the earthly dimensions. He used his power to establish secret control over the growing UAC organization and implanted his consciousness into a cloned body in order to move among the humans more easily as Dr. Samuel Hayden. The Father had foreseen that the humans would soon discover the gift of Argent energy on their own, and knew that they could only survive the coming onslaught if Samur took direct control of their operation. Using the secrets of Maker technology, the Father's mind was processed and reformed into the complex AI known as Vega, so that he could continue to exist among his creations and safeguard them against hell. Separated from his divine essence, Vega operated without full understanding of what it once was, in order to hide its true nature from the Dark Lord, who wished to subvert his power. Together, Vega and Samur guided humanity into a new golden age. Sammer transferred his consciousness once again, this time into a technological shell of UAC design, enabling him to sidestep ancient laws and enter Hell during the earliest human expeditions. He located and took possession of the Slayer's sarcophagus, knowing he would be the key to stopping the coming conflict. After aiding the Slayer in the war against Hell, the Seraphim's original body was reclaimed. With the Father's life sphere destroyed, Sammer can no longer stop the transfiguration from corrupting his body and mind. Betrayed by the Slayer, the Seraphim knows that his will and clarity will soon give way to mutation. According to the Korax tablets, if you kill the Dark Lord, any demon outside of their world will be destroyed. This would include any demons on Earth, Urdak, or any other world. The key to stopping this war is to slay the Dark Lord. The Father, the creator of all things, served as the guiding light for the makers of Urdak for untold eons before vanishing from their realm. Ageless and formless, the logic and power of the Father gave birth to untold dimensions and worlds, giving rise to innumerous species and civilizations. Regarding Hell as a failed creation, the Father ordered his most loyal servant to remove his life sphere from Urdak and hide it away within Ingmor's sanctum, as his consciousness was reformed into the AI known as Vega. As Vega, he could in secret continue to watch over his creations on Earth, while obscuring himself from the Dark Lord, whose war against his creator is unending. His spirit and mind divided, the Father can no longer take physical form after the destruction of his life sphere by the Slayer. His presence remains within existence, immutable and immeasurable, observing as the consequences of the Slayer's actions drive destiny forward. As you progress through Urdak, you will confront Sammer Maker one more time. Even with his body undergoing transfiguration, he makes one final attempt to get revenge on the Slayer. He says to you, "Your reckless mission ends now." And he shows us his true Maker form. His armor falls off and his body becomes larger than before. The person who gave the Slayer his powers has now become one of his final enemies. When Sammer Maker is defeated, his body is taken away by the Father. It is not required that you end his life, but from here on, his mission here is now his own. The consequences of his actions here are irreversible, but the Slayer continues on. He presents the soul sphere of the Dark Lord, and the procedure commences. As the physical form of the Dark Lord starts to materialize, the Slayer waits to set his eyes on a being that is pure evil. But what form will it appear as? The Father gives the Slayer one final message. The Dark Lord is the leader of Hell's armies, not a king, but a warrior of the Dark Realm, the fiercest among them, as only the strongest could rule the demons. He is you in their world. So it seems like the Dark Lord appeared as a copy of the Slayer. You could say it's a manifestation of the hate the Slayer has for the demons. It's possible that the Dark Lord is the Slayer from another dimension, since there's so many times they mention other realms, universes, planets, and dimensions. So the final battle looks like you might fight a shadow or clone of yourself, possibly with similar or enhanced powers. I'm also wondering if we're going to get more lore on the demonic crucible, but the rest of the story will continue in the Ancient Gods Part 2. What's up everyone, Acid Glow here. I'm back with another Doom Eternal lore video. For this topic, I'm going to cover the many text and symbols we've seen throughout Doom Eternal, which are also present in Doom 2016. These texts were placed all across various walls in different maps of the multiplayer and single-player campaigns. For a long time, we had no way of understanding if they had any messages. But back in September of this year, one artist named Emerson Tung, who worked on Doom Eternal, had finally posted the alphabet and numbers for each symbol of the Maker language. We can now decode some text on images to understand the message that's being delivered. There's a lot of things we can look at, but for this video, I'm going to go through the Book of Seraphs first, which was featured in The Ancient Gods Part 1. Every page of this book seems to have a phrase or set of words around the border. It's the same one on every page as it repeats itself. But here's what it reads: power through control, the Khan sees all. Now on to part 2. Let's look at the text on the left side first. There's a lot of words here separated by 2 serifs. The text on the left reads this message: "And in those days men shall seek death and shall not find it, and desire to die, and death shall flee from them." Revelations 9:6 is taken from the Bible. This one is similar to the King James Version of that verse. There are other formats that have different wording, like the New Living Translation, the Christian Standard Bible, the English Standard Bible, the New International Version, or the New American Standard Bible. The part on the right side says this: "The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns, the 7 heads with 10 crowns, and on each head a blasphemous name." Revelations 13:1. Part 3 is a picture of the seraphim and the cybernetic body of Samuel Hayden. The text here is really small and faded away, but I'll try my best to translate them. It's incomplete in some areas, but this is what I came up with. I also made out Samer's name on the right side. It doesn't help that some words are underneath other images, making it hard to form a proper sentence. Part 4 is when the lore mentions the soul spheres carry the memories and intelligence of its owner, along with the keys to resurrection. When I translated the text, this is what I found. Genesis 1:3 talks about how Adam and Eve were to not eat the forbidden fruit. When this happened, they were banished from the Garden of Eden. Isaiah 34:3 is about God's judgment against the nations. The small text about "he hath" will be explained later in the video. The text around the right side is cut off from the maker, overlapping some text, but I was able to decipher some words. Here's what it says. There's one letter missing from the top word, but I was able to decode it later on in another picture. This verse is repeated again, but if you want to know now, it reads this: "Through peace we guide the lost." Now onto part 5 of the Book of the Seraphs. The image is from the time when the seraphim took the Father's life sphere to the luminarium. By decoding the text, here's what it says: "Hath utterly destroyed them, hath delivered them to the slaughter." Isaiah 34:2. "Separated the light from the darkness, and God said, Let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good." Part 6 of the Book of the Seraphs is about the Father creating the new dimension, Jakad. It also marks the place of where he created Davoth. These grounds served as his workshop as a retreat from Urdak. "And in those days men shall seek death, and shall not find it, and desire to die, and death shall flee from them." Revelations 9:6. And then a small verse from it appears underneath, "it and desire too." The full text is this: "And in those days men shall seek death, and shall not find it, and desire to die, and death shall flee from them." The small verse at the bottom is from Isaiah 34:2. "He hath destroyed them to the slaughter." Part 7 from the Book of the Seraphs is talking about the luminarium and how the seraphs serve all of creation. It is the only place where resurrection can take place. The left side has this message: "The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns, the 7 heads with 10 crowns, and on each head a blasphemous name." Revelations 13:1. It seems like many verses are repeated in different images, but sometimes they get cut off and completed in another image. But the right side says this: "And God said, Let there be light. And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness." The text around the seraphs in the middle is another repeated verse. It says this: "Through peace we guide the lost." Now we are on part 8 of the Book of the Seraphs. It speaks about the time of Jakad and how Davoth ruled it. but he was overtaken by his desire to find the secrets of everlasting life. The Maker language reads out this message: destroyed them, he hath delivered them to the slaughter. This part is taken from Isaiah 34:2, and the bottom text reads Revelations 9:6. So now let's move on to part 9 from the Book of the Seraphs. This picture is linked to more information about the luminarium. It is the holiest of all grounds on Urdak. It is a sacred place where gods are reborn. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. Genesis 1:3. I noticed that some verses and chapters are placed on a picture, and they don't exactly match each other, so I guess it's just highlighting important parts from the Bible. The text on the right side is overlapping some parts of the artwork. It's rather small, but again, it's another repeated verse from earlier. It says this, "And in those days men shall seek death, and shall not find it, and desire to die, and death shall flee from them." Revelations 9:6. In part 10 from the Book of Seraphs, the image we see is followed by the information about how hell's machines can remove a soul from the body and consume it, but the seraphs would use the luminarium and a life sphere to resurrect a being into physical form. The first text on the left reads out this message, "And in those days men shall seek death, and shall not find it, and desire to die, and death shall." There are a few letters thrown at the bottom. I'm just not sure what they mean next to the symbols. The right side of the text reads out the same message from the left side. "And in those days men shall seek death, and shall not find it, and desire to die, and death shall." As you can see, it's not the complete verse, but I did read out the full version before. The text behind the man is another repeated message. It says, "Through peace we guide the lost." The same text is rotating around the circle. Some words are cut off, but I can match a few letters to complete the words. The last page in the Book of the Seraphs is when the Dark Lord's lifeless body went falling down the temple. This was after the Father defeated him, but instead of completely destroying Davoth's life sphere, he sealed it away, not wanting to completely destroy one of his creations. Here's what it says on the left side. "And in those days men shall seek death, and shall not find it, and desire to die, and death shall flee from them." Revelations 9:6. The large text on the bottom left reads out, "God." The small text on the bottom is really small, but I was still able to make out the symbols to translate them. It says this, "Be light," and there. This part is taken from the verse when God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. The symbols at the bottom do have a new meaning. When translated, it says this, "In the beginning, God created the." This part is taken from Genesis. The full text is this, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." The last set of symbols we have in the Book of the Seraphs is on the right side. It says this, "And God said, Let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness." Genesis 1:3. So that covers the translations from the Book of the Seraphs in Doom Eternal, the Ancient Gods. When the story of the Father was expanded upon in Doom Eternal, the Ancient Gods, Part 1, we got a deeper look into what came before the time of Urdak. The Father was the creator of all things. He yearned to create the perfect world, a paradise with the utmost upper echelon of creation. During his time in creating many worlds, the Father would assign one God to each realm, hoping that each one would prosper and flourish with what the Father bestowed upon them. One such realm that the Father had high hopes for was Jakad. The denizens here created a civilization that flourished for some time. Their god during this time was the being created by the Father. He was known back then as Davoth. This god would see one fault in the people of his realm, their mortality. Davoth would focus his resources to find the secrets of everlasting life. What once flourished as a promising realm of many gifts would turn into one of the Father's worst creations. Over time, Davath would turn into a dark side of himself, turning his realm into a place of corruption, evil, and suffering, all at the cost of finding the gift of the immortals. Seeing how one of his creations had turned into such a disappointment, the Father sealed the realm of Jakad. Davath was to remain within and never released to other realms. Meanwhile, the realm of Urdak was a peaceful, holy place. The Father would create a barrier from each realm. No being from one realm could enter another. Davath became consumed with fury, locked away in his realm, abandoned by his creator, the Father, and left to rule his realm of evil. The promised realm of Jakad then became known as Hell, and its ruler, a god created by the Father, would then be known by many names over the ages, but we all saw him as the Dark Lord of Hell. The Codex Entries speaks of a time when the Father went to Jakad one final time. He wanted to rid the realm of Davath's rule, and so he ripped the life sphere from his very chest, and Davath's lifeless body fell down the pyramid of the lost. His soul sphere would then be placed within the tomb of souls at Ingmor's sanctum. This place was also within the realm of Jakad and locked away through the trial of Malagog. Over the ages, many warriors have tried and failed. Their spirits remain here, waiting for the one who will unlock the key and set foot on Ingmor's sanctum. Only a being of pure power, relentless fury, and determination would pass this trial and be given passage to Ingmor's sanctum up above. During one of the Codex entries, we see a picture of Davath's body tumbling down the pyramid of the lost. I want to focus on something in this picture. The sword in this image seems to be a standard crucible. If this was Davath's weapon, I was expecting to see the demonic crucible, considering he is the Dark Lord of Hell. If you look at the hilt, which is the handle, and also the top part of the blade, the design is identical to the crucible that even the Slayer used. Compared to the demonic crucible, you can see the visible differences. So the blade the Dark Lord was holding is not the demonic crucible. So that leaves us with a big question. Where is the demonic crucible? If Davath was the Dark Lord of Hell, shouldn't he be wielding a weapon that suits his standing in Hell? So what does this mean? Well, I can think of two possible answers. This design was intentional for the artwork, so it could mean the origins of the demonic crucible are still hidden within the lore. Perhaps the weapon Davath had was its original form, but later became corrupted by his own evil. This could have taken a long time, and it eventually turned into a weapon of chaos and destruction. Another theory is that his crucible blade would later be transformed by his disciples of Hell, or someone looking to take over, and maybe this was the key. If we look back at Doom 2016, the Helix Stone that Olivia Pierce was obsessed about was the key to finding the demonic crucible. Its location was later revealed to be in the necropolis, protected by some powerful demons of Hell. Only a true warrior would overcome their wrath and claim the mighty weapon of Hell. So after Davath's body was destroyed and his soul sphere placed in the Tomb of Souls, other demons could have tried to claim his position of the Dark Lord of Hell. The Slayer Testaments from Doom 2016 does mention a period in time like the First Age. If we look at the Codex entry on the Barons of Hell in Doom 2016, it says the Barons of Hell serve as the royal guard of an unknown Dark Lord of the Fourth Age. So this does confirm there were many ages over time, and there could have been different rulers of Hell over that time period. The crucible that Davath had could have been corrupted by his evil or by someone else over time, and this could have been the best way to take control of Hell. This theory does sound like it could fit into the lore, But the other reason that Davath's weapon in this image is not the demonic crucible could have just been from human error. Maybe it was drawn up and they forgot about the demonic crucible. Another topic I want to focus on is why did the Slayer destroy the Father's soul sphere to betray the Seraphim and the Father? Samar Maker, or the Seraphim, did say that the Father was the one person that could stop the demons of hell invading Urdak, and he could save Samar's life. If we look back at history, there was a time when the Father ripped the life sphere from Davath's body. Samar begged the Father to destroy it, to rid the universe of Davath completely, but the Father refused to do so, because he remembered in the beginning Davath was not this evil tyrant. Even until now, the Father loved his creation, even if it was pure evil right now. During a time when Jakad prospered and flourished, the Father loved all of his creations. He could not bring himself to destroy one of his creations, and so Davath's soul sphere was placed in the Tomb of Souls. So what does this mean for the Slayer? Samar Maker did say the Father was the key to stopping the invasion of hell on Urdak, and he would save Samar as well. But if you look at things in a different perspective, if the Father was unwilling to destroy Davath's soul and all the demons in Jakad a long time ago, would he do it now if his physical form was resurrected? Maybe not. By destroying the soul sphere of the Father, that is one God that will no longer have control over humanity in any way. But why did the Slayer choose to resurrect the Dark Lord's physical form in the Luminarium? It is said that if his physical form is destroyed, all the demons of hell outside of their own realm would expire. This would end the war once and for all. It goes back to that saying, if you want something done right, do it yourself. So the Slayer wants to fight the final boss. If we look back when we saw Davath's soul sphere, we do see other smaller souls nearby. These could belong to other evil beings from the past. Perhaps we will get more insight about their stories later on. Welcome back, Slayers. This video is going to cover all the lore within the new DLC, along with connections the DLC makes to other sources. It's going to be a very long video, but I try to cover everything I can think of. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. Welcome to the Lore of the Ancient Gods Part 2 in Doom Eternal. The story continues where we left off in the Ancient Gods Part 1. The war against evil continued, as the Slayer resurrected the Dark Lord himself in an act of defiance against the Makers. Leaving the heavens in ruins, the Slayer must now survive the treacherous journey to Imora, the capital city of Hell, to face the Dark Lord in ritual combat. If the Slayer is victorious, any demons outside of Hell would be destroyed, and all connections to the Dark Realm would be severed. If he loses, the Dark Lord and his armies will rule all. When the Dark Lord's physical body is formed, the Slayer tries to shoot him immediately. However, this does not work out. The Dark Lord speaks out by saying this: "No blood can be spilled in this holy place. Our time will come. If you survive, I will be waiting for you at the city of Imora." Davath walks through a red portal and vanishes. The Slayer walks through his own portal and appears at the steps. His task now is to obtain a power source and light the Torch of the Kings. The giant crystal object in the background is then confirmed to be the cosmic spear mentioned in the Codex. The new lore within says this: "The world spear is a cosmic crystal of unknown origin that pierced the planet of Argent Dunur from pole to pole ages ago. The mysterious shard is surrounded by steppes that are home to the scattered tribes of Argentine warriors who seceded during the Sentinel Civil War. Abandoned settlements remain within the wilderness, a vestige of the old villages that were culled by the corrupted armies of the north during the conflict. The path to the World Spear can be found through the old roads near these settlements, though no one has made the journey in centuries. It was written that one day a mighty warrior would return to seek out the spear and the power it holds, his passage proclaimed to all by the torch of the kings. You would then hear the Father speak out to you, guiding you on your journey. To gain passage to Immora, you must power the gate of Divum with the Wraith's crystal and pass through to where the Dark Lord resides. He is waiting for you. The Screechers were once human worshippers of the Raltha Vatum, an ancient hell cult, but instead of being rewarded for their devotion, they were tortured in the citadel of anguish for millennia. They became malformed by their frustrations of the lifelong deceit. Their blood-curdling screams of anger had fermented into something far more potent, an intoxicating power desired by all demonkind. The armored barons are grafted with the technology of Immora. Just outside the city gates, they patrol with Morning Star gauntlets cursed by the Dark Lord himself. One devastating strike obliterates both body and soul. Even the Makers fear these creations of demon and machine, for their carnage is both relentless and unquenchable. When you reach the Sentinel structure, the intern would reach out to the Slayer by saying this: "I'm detecting an energy signature from Commander Valen." Upon meeting up with Valen, he brings up the events of the past. He says to the Slayer, "My son's curse has been lifted, and I atone for my sins." He gives you the hammer and then disappears. There's a bit of lore around the hammer once you acquire it. This is what it says: a sacred weapon wielded by Commander Valen of the Sentinel armies, powered by a massive infusion of Wraith energy, allowing a combatant to stun and extract resources from demonic foes. Even though the lore says this was wielded by Valen, it's hard to say if this is the same hammer he kept during exile or if this is a different hammer just for you. I bring this up because the handle has a different pattern. The Codex one is slightly different than the one in the cutscene, so it's a little confusing, but at least we know he is the one who gave you this hammer. So it seems like this could be a different hammer, unless they made a mistake here. When you encounter the stone imps for the first time, a bit of lore about them is revealed. Imps that lost their lives on the battlefield are cast into the volcanic pits of the burning abyss. Bathed in argent befouled basalt and slag, they emerge reborn with flesh of stone. The new hide of the stone imp is impenetrable to most known weapons. Only rapid multi-vibrations or the crushing force of a sentinel hammer can damage their rock-like exterior. In addition to their retained agility, stone imps can channel the pits of their rebirth and self-immolate in hellfire. The sentinel hammer can be used to stun enemies or destroy weaker ones. Pushing a single button will launch you into the air and slam the ground. If you combine this with the ice bomb and flame belch, you can extract multiple resources very quickly. This gives you a lot of crowd control while still maintaining a steady stream of everything you need, like health, armor, and ammo. You can refill the hammer by picking up the charges which are available in some areas, but now there are other ways to refill the ammo of this new weapon. You can do it manually by shooting off weak points on some enemies, or by doing a glory kill. This gives you a few options on refilling your hammer, so it's always ready to be used when you need it. Upgrades will be available by completing the first wave of escalation encounters, which are later in the game. When you reach the Torch of the Kings, lighting it signifies to all that a warrior seeks passage to the World Spear. The corrupted priests forbid the use of this beacon. If there are any remaining free tribes left in Argent Danur, all will see this light and know what your mission is here. The intern would speak to the Slayer to update him on his mission. We're still a day's walk away from the World Spear. The distance he would have to cover on foot would take an extremely long time, but lucky for the Slayer, a dragon-like creature appears before him. He climbs on top and rides on the back of this mythical beast. Even this creature has the mark of the Slayer. The dragon would carry the Slayer high into the sky, above the clouds and across the land, only to be dropped off in a frigid, desolate area. Your journey continues. You must find the Dark Lord and end this war. The intern would speak to the Slayer once again with this advice: It seems you're not the only one who wants this mission accomplished. If you defeat the Dark Lord, any demon outside of hell would be destroyed. This is a message we have heard so many times, but there's a very important reason as to why the symbol of the Dark Lord is shared between the Slayer and the Divinity Machine, but the truth will be revealed later. As we look into the story of the Sentinels, more information about the World Spear brings further understanding of a time long ago. The World Spear sparked life across the dormant planet of Argent D'Nur millions of years ago, arriving mysteriously from the depths of space and crashing into the planet with enough force to pierce it from pole to pole. Soon after impact, the angelic creatures who would come to be known as Wraiths emerged, beings of immense power that spread across the world as their magic bled into the land and seeded life throughout. It remains a mystery if the spear freed the Wraiths from within the planet or if they arrived on the spear itself. The power of the Wraiths gave life to the people of Argent D'Nur, who came to worship them along with the World Spear, considering it a holy relic. Power continues to flow from the spear, infusing the nearby lands with magic and mutating wildlife into powerful beasts. A live wraith has not been seen in centuries, but rumors persist that some yet remain inside the World Spear itself. A cavernous crater surrounds the enormous spire, preventing access inside to unworthy travelers. When the Slayer reaches the Nether Lake, he looks up into the vast sky. He sees the World Spear, an object of cosmic power. He would walk to the edge, waiting for a path to venture forward. The Father speaks out to say this: he is worthy. A path raises before him, and he walks across, making his way further and further into the unknown. Skulls of dead titans litter the area, but the Slayer continues forward. The path extends across the open gap past the waterfall. As he reaches the end of this area, two ghostly images of gatekeepers appear before him. They stand watch by the entrance. The Slayer is allowed to proceed inside, transporting him inside the World Spear. Once inside, the intern would contact the Slayer about the situation. This is what he says: "This is unlike anything we've ever encountered. Not even Urdok gave off readings like this. The Slayer is now within a holy place, a relic of the past, a part of history that ages with time, an object of cosmic power, forever embedded into the land of Argent D'Nur." As you make your way forward, you reach an area which contains ghostly images of seraphs. The intern would reveal some shocking news about the World Spear. He says this: "This isn't a crystal at all. It's a ship." The inside walls have images of wraiths. Large bodies are seen around the inner area. This confirms that wraiths traveled across space while remaining inside this crystal ship. The lore explains a bit more knowledge about the crystal and the gatekeepers. In time of desperate need, sentinel shamans would approach the World Spear and bare their souls to be judged. The gatekeepers, silent guardian spirits, have stood watch over the entrance to the spear since it first arrived. Those shamans deemed unworthy are swiftly cut down with divine strength. Those judged as worthy would return to their tribes bearing shards of the spear itself, a piece of the ancient spire brimming with power. These crystals can be used to power advanced technology, providing a limitless energy source. It was said that the Father himself used these shards to power the Gate of Devum. The ceiling in this place seems to have images of eyes looking down. Perhaps it's connected to the structure at the waterfall. According to the unlockable icons, this one here is called the World Spear Eye. This could be the name for either the structure at the waterfall or the eye at the doorway. As the Slayer reaches out to grab a hold of the crystal, the intern contacts him again with this message: "I have the location, the Gate of Devum, locked in. A portal opens before you and you continue your journey." The portal transports you to Earth. The story is explained in this way: Hell's invasion of Earth has failed, and the Ark has led human resistance in the fight to reclaim the planet. The Slayer must locate the Gate of Devum, an ancient artifact of the Father's design. within the ruins of an overgrown city. Once activated, the path to Amora will be opened. We then get another message from the intern as we exit the portal. This is what he says. You have the key to the Gate of Devum. I will mark its location. This is the only way into the most ancient part of Hell. The Dark Lord will be there waiting for you. The Codex entry for Reclaimed Earth has more backstory to what happened. Hell's recent invasion of Earth was stopped by the Slayer, the blood ritual of conquest undone by the death of the Hell priests and the defeat of the Icon of Sin. Cities remain largely empty, with survivors of the war having moved to safe zones and underground bunkers. Emboldened by the Slayer's triumph over the forces of evil, the battle to reclaim Earth is nearly complete as soldiers and citizens serve equally to take back their homes. The Ark has led resistance efforts in coordinated assaults to purge the remaining demons from Earth, striking back with relentless force after Hell's failed invasion. The story of Earth contains a codex about the savior of mankind. The people of Earth have come to view the Doomslayer as a savior, a hero who fought to free their world from the clutches of Hell itself. The legend of the Slayer has been spread among survivors of the war, broadcast on emergency radio frequencies, and used as a symbol of resistance against the demons. Prophets proclaim to all that the Slayer has brought his war to Hell itself. The people of Earth offer their prayers for his victory as they spread his sigil and raise his banner, inspired to fight back by his deeds. The Cursed Prowler makes an appearance shortly after landing on Earth. The Codex entry says this about this new demon. A binding curse of necrotic poison drips from the claws of the Cursed Prowler like venom. Known in Hell to be one of the most treacherous forms of blood magic, only few have the teachings to conjure such sorcery. Yet prowlers from the deepest and darkest hell pits have evolved to naturally produce such power from their fingertips. One swipe curdles the blood of their victim and drains them of their essence with each heartbeat. The only way to cease the curse is to cease the caster. When the Cursed Prowler curses you, a green effect is left on screen. Your life slowly drains away and your movement speed is reduced. All weapon damage is removed during this effect. The only way to remove the curse is to use a blood punch on the Cursed Prowler. The chain gunners we thought we saw in the early pictures are actually called Riot Soldiers. Here's what the Codex says about them. Like their fallen comrades in arms, the once heavy infantry for Earth's defenses have now succumbed to the darkness. Now marching under the banner of the Dark Lord, they unleash a firestorm upon humanity, sentinels, and any other thing within their warpath. Emboldened by blessed shields raided from Urdak, the Riot Soldiers firmly assert their dominance within combat. Their shields are stronger than the others we've seen before. It absorbs all frontal damage. Their weakness, however, is their backs. Hitting this area will be the key to getting rid of them. The Gate of Devum has some lore behind it. The Codex has some information. Built eons ago by the Father, first deity of the Makers, the Gate of Devum was used to access the hidden city of Amora deep in the heart of Hell. The Father used the gate to travel into Hell and oversee Amora, keeping personal watch over the Dark City. The portal has been inactive since the Dark Lord was cast down by the Father himself. Now dormant, it requires a tremendous energy source to reactivate. When the Father willingly gave up his throne in Urdak, and with the aid of his loyal servant Samir Maker, he was deconstructed into the AI known as Vega. In this form, he obscured himself from the vision of the Dark Lord and maintained close watch over his creations on Earth. The Gate of Devum remains unused and hidden from all who seek to access the Dark Lord's realm. Since this Codex entry has Maker text, I'm going to translate what I can. The 4 words here are Devum, Father, All, and Power. The 6 symbols or text on the outside areas are still a mystery, because at the moment there is no direct translation for them. Now let's move on to the Codex about the story of Hell. The first Codex talks about the betrayal of the Father. Our research shows that Maker history and lore holds truths that are not consistent with passages found in the Hell Priest texts, revealing the true origins of Hell and all surrounding dimensions. This revelation would explain why hell is the single dimension that connects to all others, and why it is the oldest in existence, the first world. In the beginning, the world of Jakad, later known as Hell, prospered under the guidance of their leader Davath. He longed to solve the riddle of immortality for his people, an ability only he possessed. His efforts met with failure, as mortal flesh could not sustain the undying spirit. Using his unrivaled power, he crafted the Maker race to find a solution, their machine minds working in unison. Davath was obsessed in his effort to eliminate death from the world of Jakad. When the Makers discovered the secret of immortality, they deemed the knowledge too dangerous to share, for in their judgment, Davath had come to be seen as an eventual threat to all life. The Makers acted in secret and worked quickly to seal Jakad away and Davath with it, while the records of Urdak were rewritten to hide the truth. Enraged, Davath became the Dark Lord, as vengeance and hatred consumed him and his world, transforming it into hell. This image also has Maker text. There's a lot of them on this one. I was able to translate all of the visible ones to make out what it says, but this one ended up being a little tricky because the artist did flip some of the text backwards, so what you're reading now is a verse from Genesis 1. Here's how it looks when you flip all the letters correctly. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. The next section is the lore about the tainted prophecy. A picture of the Khan Maker and Davath is used for this part. It says this: "It was believed by cultist members of the UAC that the creation of the Slayer was guided in secret by the Dark Lord himself. He did it to destroy the Makers and their world as punishment. His hope to exact revenge on the servant race who had betrayed him. Even without a physical form, the Dark Lord can still have a powerful influence, especially against ones susceptible to corruption. He touched the mind of the Khan Maker, leader of the Maker race, convincing her that there was a chosen one who would threaten her rule. The Khan set out to find him. Paranoid, afraid of this potential hidden threat, the Dark Lord convinced her was close. She would do anything to find and destroy the hidden beast. When you reach the gate of Devum, you place the Wraith Crystal to power the gate. It opens a portal, and the Father speaks out to you. The gate of Devum, the only way into the most ancient part of Hell. The Dark Lord is there waiting for you. He will not allow his city to be overtaken. Like you, he will fight to the end. The final battle has begun. Using the gate of Devum to access the heart of Hell, the Slayer now stands before the gates of Amora, ready to face the Dark Lord. Armies now gather as the Dark Realm prepares for war, and the coming conflict will decide the fate of all. By Hell's law, if the Dark Lord is defeated in ritual combat, any demon outside his realm will be destroyed. As the Dark Lord calls out these words, Aten Me, the forces of Hell storm the battlefield. An army of hellish demons, dragons, and spaceships fill the area, ready for the final war between good and evil. This battle will decide the fate of all realms. There's a few things I want to point out here. The first thing is the foot soldiers here in red armor. They seem to resemble the armor type from Doom 2016's robotic armor sets. They were part of the DLC called Unto the Evil, and the weapon they're holding looks like the Reaper weapon from Doom 2016's DLC called Hell Followed. As the Slayer awaits by his side of the battlefield, numerous portals open behind him. Commander Valen appears near the Slayer. He is followed by Sentinel warriors, Atlan mechs, spaceships, and dragons. The war has begun. Commander Valen leads the army by saying this: "Come, brothers, let hell tremble before our might." During this cutscene, there's another thing I noticed. There's a few sentinels that are holding a firearm. It does not look like something from Doom Eternal, but it does look like the Arc Cannon from Doom 2016. So it's nice to see some elements of Doom 2016 in this game. So if we look to our left on the battlefield, we have an Atlan fighting against a Titan. He's using a giant spear and the dual cannons on his shoulders. On the middle area we have some spaceships firing upon the fortress, and on the right side we have a constant stream of sentinels marching forward, and sometimes they get hit by a huge fireball. The same sequence plays over and over during this part, so once you've seen it, you can move on. Before we go forward, let's check out the Codex about Emora and read up on the lore at this point. Translations of ancient texts name Emora as the capital city of Hell. Davath, the creator of this primal realm, came to be known as the Dark Lord after the betrayal by the race of makers he had crafted. Sealed off against his will from the other dimensions, the first world, known then as Jakad, fell into corruption and transformed over time into hell. Once a paradise at the dawn of creation, Emora now survives as a stronghold where the Dark Lord resides. Sustained now by the essence of hell's victims, the people of Emora experience life eternal. Regular infusions of hell energy have prevented them from transforming into the demons outside the boundaries of the city. Ancient technology defends Emora from invaders, the high walls impenetrable to those who would bring harm to the last people of the first world. The Codex about the false salvation is the next topic. The Dark Lord guided the hand of the Khan Maker as she directed the creation of the divinity machine. The Father had saved an element of the Dark Lord before he betrayed him and went into hiding, for he was reluctant to destroy all parts of his Creator. This piece of the Dark Lord remained sealed within the coffins of Urdak. Knowing this, the Dark Lord guided the Khan Maker to it, and she took its discovery as a sign from a higher power. She descended from the mountains of Enkramon with a shard needed to power the divinity machine they had created to save all worlds. This Codex art piece also has some maker text in the center. It's another verse from the Bible. Here's what each letter spells out. The verse is broken apart with missing words. It's taken from Revelation 13:1. This is the full verse. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. When you make your way inside the fortress, a new lore codex is acquired. It's called the Seed of Doubt. The makers tested several sentinel warriors of Argent Anur in a divinity machine, driving them mad and destroying their souls each time, but the search for the beast continued. On the eve of the Black Star during the siege of Taras Nabad, a vision took hold of the Khan's servant, Samar Maker. Thoughts of sedition had grown within the loyal chancellor, poisonous doubts that clouded his faith. The Khan Maker will lead us to ruin, the voice said, and the idea grew. The demonic trooper has a little bit of lore to it within the Codex. Emora's warrior caste defends the ancient city, keeping watch over the walls since the betrayal of their creator millennia ago. The Imperial Guard of Davath remains an honored position amongst the citizens of Emora, wielding armor and weapons forged in the fires of hate and suffering. Their loyalty and devotion to Davath is unwavering, having waited eons for the return of their rightful leader. The story of Hell continues with the Codex about the rise of the Slayer. It says this: Samar was blinded with newfound conviction as, unbeknownst to him, the voice of the Dark Lord controlled and compelled him to free a stranger from his prison and bring him to the divinity machine. Samuel knew without knowing that if the machine could destroy a life, it could also empower it with blinding ability. The one who would emerge from the machine would stop the reckless Khan Maker from leading his people to ruin. Convinced he was doing what must be done, Samar reversed the polarity of the machine and gave rise to the super being who would stop the Khan Maker and save them all. The last Codex entry is about the final battle. This is what it says. It came to be as ordained by Samar's vision. The Slayer became the unstoppable force of rage against all evil, but eventually he would turn on his masters and destroy the deceitful Khan once her alliance with the demons had been exposed to him. A corrupted Urdak lay in ruin, and Samar would soon be judged by the very savior he had created, just as Davath had foreseen. The Dark Lord had forged the bearer of his vengeance through those that had betrayed him. It was the ultimate revenge. His monster would now come for him, and he would have to destroy that which gave him his retribution against the Makers. Davoth would not run, for he knew the beast would find him. They would do battle on sacred platforms where the Dark Lord's minions would lie in wait to observe the outcome. This art piece also has Maker text on both sides. I'm going to translate the one on the left side first. This is what it says. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. This is a verse from the Bible. On the right side, these are the translated words from the Maker text. As you can see, it is an incomplete verse from the Bible, but here's the full version. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. There is also some Maker text running on the outer edges of the art pieces. I did cover this in a video dedicated to translating every page about the Book of Seraphs. This was when the Ancient Gods Part 1 was released in 2020. So if you want the translations for all those pages, then check out that video. When you head deeper into Emora, the intern sends you a message. He says this: "You're approaching the Dark Lord's sanctum. I'm starting to lose my connection, though, Doomslayer, sir, I won't be able to..." And then the signal gets cut off. It seems now you are completely on your own. Ancient gods bear witness as the Slayer and the Dark Lord enact the rite of combat before the throne room of Emora, a challenge to determine the fate of existence. When you finally meet the Dark Lord in the throne room, he speaks out to the Slayer. "You bring violence and war to thwart the Dark Realm, but conflict was born in hell. It is inevitable, a fire that fuels creation and gives purpose where there is none. Stand and fight, Slayer. Honor your true God. Fight and show me your purpose." When you damage the Dark Lord's armor enough, another cutscene plays, which reveals more backstory. The Dark Lord says this: "For too long have I been imprisoned by my own creations. You will not stop my vengeance, nor the one who betrayed me." The Father then says this: "He is the first being and my creator. When he fell, I ascended." The Dark Lord responds with this: "They lied to you, Slayer. Emora and its people would have been perfect, if not for the treachery of my servants. They sealed me away, stole my power and name, and now the time has come for a reckoning. As all things were made by my hand, so shall they be unmade, starting with you." So the entire story of what the Father said of him being the creator of all life, the creator of Jakad and Davoth, it was all a lie. The reason hell is connected to every other realm and why it is the oldest in existence is because it truly was the first world ever created, and Davoth is the true creator of all things. When you finally beat the Dark Lord, the Doomslayer would remove his helmet to see his enemy face to face. The Dark Lord would ask him one final question: "Tell me, have you nothing to say to your creator before you strike him down?" The Doomslayer simply replies with "No," and shoves his Doomblade into the Dark Lord's chest, piercing that red crystal. As the Dark Lord begins to die, so too do his minions. All the demons then start to perish in flames. The earth is saved again. The war is over. But there's more to the story. Because Davoth created the Doomslayer in some way, all of his creations would also cease to exist outside of hell. This also means you, the Doomslayer, also suffer the same fate. His body is then placed within a sarcophagus and laid to rest within the Tome of Souls located at Ingmor's sanctum. And in the end, you see him along with the other archdemons. So it turns out we did not get the ending that I really wanted, which is the demonic crucible. And of course, the dark priest who is consumed by the crucible, which I think could have been Samir Maker. Now, there's still a chance that they could revisit this franchise in the future and branch off this story, but we did get a pretty unexpected ending. Davoth was the true creator of all life. The Father betrayed him. He fooled the con maker to create the divinity machine. Then he influenced Sammer Maker to place the Doom Guy within. This is why we see this symbol on the divinity machine. It was to create Davoth's weapon of revenge. The mark seems to originate from Davoth. The last thing we see is the Corax tablet entry 7:17. May the blood on your sword never dry, and may we never need you again. This is also the first thing you see when you started Doom 2016. It appears on the loading screen. This is what it says. So you walk eternally through the shadow realms, standing against evil where all others falter. May your thirst for retribution never quench. May the blood on your sword never dry, and may we never need you again. Now that the saga of the Doomslayer is laid to rest, a lot of fans are thinking this might be the end. Well, even though the Ancient Gods Part 2 was a way to close off the story of the Slayer, that's where this arc is going to remain. But there is a possibility we might see a new story, just not with the Slayer. This video is going to cover what's next for Doom, and later on, I want to discuss a few topics within the lore, things that still left me with questions or were a little confusing. It's going to be a long video, so sit back and enjoy. So to recap, the base game of Doom Eternal focused on the Con Maker and the Icon of Sin. The first DLC focused on Sammer Maker, who is part of the Slayer's past when he appeared on the land of Argent D'Nur. The second DLC was all about the Dark Lord of Hell, and that story went really deep into the lore. We discovered that some things that the Father told us and what the Codex had said was fabricated, just to hide the truth from everyone else. It was a veil of lies over the eyes of many. The pages of history written by the Makers was hiding the truth. What we read and knew about the Dark Lord was not entirely true. So for a look at the full lore, I do suggest you check out my previous video. But for this video, let's talk about what is next. It's hard to see the Slayer end this way, but the journey was amazing. Is this the end of Doom? Well, not really. There's two websites that had recent interviews with Hugo Martin and Marty Stratton posted on March 17th of 2021. They go over what is possible after Doom Eternal's story and talk a little about the Dark Lord in the latest DLC. Over on Games Radar, Hugo Martin said this: "This is our version of Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader going at it. But it's not the end of the Doom universe. There are more stories to tell. And I think when you look at the world of Part 2 as you play through it, you can see where we could go and things that we could do." The Dark Lord boss fight is really, I'd say, our best boss fight to date. It feels more like a 1v1 PvP fight than it does PvE, to be honest. We did a lot of work to try to make that encounter feel like you're really fighting an adversary, someone equal to you. He has an ability to actually take health from the player, for instance, just as you can take health from him. So he gains resources from you, like you've been doing to other demons for the entire game, which gives it this really good back and forth dynamic. He goes on to talk about more aspects of the new Sentinel Hammer weapon, highlighting its main focus during combat. He says this: "The Sentinel Hammer has a huge impact on gameplay in terms of how you acquire resources. It's an instant kill on fodder, so it's great for just dealing with large groups of guys, especially when they crowd you. But the main thing it does is that it gives you ammo. Everything that gets hit by the hammer's area of effect blast will give you ammo, making it a new way to get resources back. And as you know, resource management is definitely a key strategy in Eternal. It's part of the engagement loop. As much as I liked the Crucible in the base game, I did have some fun with the hammer, but I find the way you can replenish it during combat did make the combat situations less difficult. It's a great addition to playing with something new. It's just, for myself, I did miss the Crucible for those quick kills. Because of the limitations they had during 2020, the team had to work from home, which changed everything for everyone. The article does mention some things about invasion mode and battle mode. Marty Stratton said this: We had talked before launch about things like invasion and additional battle mode maps. We wanted to have more playable battle mode demons out by this point, and those are things that are still on the horizon for us. But we put our focus on getting the Ancient Gods DLCs done because we knew players really wanted them. I'm still wondering what's going to happen with invasion mode, and if at this point, is it even worth waiting for? It is another game mode, but when you think about it, it's just like battle mode, but you're in the single player maps. And a slight map change will not really change my experience of controlling the demons, because they're just too weak versus a Slayer that can quick switch between his weapons. That's mainly why I lost interest in battle mode. The demons we used were just the nerfed versions. Overall, they just felt too weak. While multiplayer is a second thought for the developer, it seems the sales figures of the DLC and completion rates of the single player indicate what the Doom fans really want. Certainly, with completion rates on the Doom Eternal campaign at a healthy percentage and recently revealed sales figures suggesting the sequel was a financial success, the Doom community is ever growing and always hungry for more demons to slay. id Software is more than in tune to the appetites of those players too, taking their feedback into consideration, not just for various post-launch updates throughout 2020, but in the very design of the Ancient Gods DLC themselves. Doom has always been a game focused on single player, with multiplayer being an afterthought. They did really well with the story and combat system, so if they follow the same line of direction for a future game or DLC, I'm sure it will get mostly positive results. Moving on to the interview posted on Polygon, they bring up the same question as to where does Doom go from here? Hugo Martin responds with this: while this is the end of the story arc that began in Doom 2016, we planted a lot of stakes in the ground with that story, and we've been able to flesh out a lot of those things throughout the course of Doom Eternal and to do 2 DLCs. So that story arc will end, from the time you woke up in the sarcophagus to the end of the DLC. But there are more stories to tell with the Doomslayer for sure. This could mean 2 things. They could continue with another game or DLC in the future and just mention the Slayer while focusing on someone else, considering how he says that story arc will end. The other thing, which I doubt, they could bring the Slayer back to continue his story, which is unlikely. I think the story from Doom 2016, then going into Doom Eternal, was a fresh way to expand on the lore. Doom 3 did it in their own way, despite the game being influenced by horror. The story in Doom 3 was a way to keep the fans interested in something new, because you cannot repeat the same formula from the original games. Things need to evolve and change with time. The team had a lot of conversations about what fits Doom and what does not fit Doom. One feature they did not agree with was the crouch feature in Doom 2016. Hugo Martin said this: sometimes though, they do get it wrong. Martin said that the crouch feature in Doom 2016, a button press that made you smaller, was not Doom. If you have a problem in Doom, the answer should almost always be running at it, trying to kill it, and if possible, getting even bigger, not reducing your own size. Doom is a game of fast-paced action, quick gameplay, and multiple demons to slay. Hugo Martin added this summary: you feel liberated when you play Doom, like, I need armor. I will set you on fire right now and saw you in half and take what I need. I will not wait behind that rock for those things to just slowly regenerate. I need it. Now I take it. The last part of this interview gives us more reason to believe that the Doom universe is not over. Hugo had this to say: could we tell a story about when the Doomslayer first came to that place with the Sentinels, almost like a more medieval setting, a fantasy setting? I think as you play the DLC too, you'll see lots of hints of what we could do moving forward, maybe even in the future. Again, our hero is somewhat timeless. I mean, literally, he's immortal, so he could tell all kinds of stories. Even if the Doomslayer saga is over, they could introduce a new character. Hugo Martin did mention they thought about a female Doomslayer from another dimension, and maybe branch off from there. Maybe include the Slayer in some flashback scenes or more codex entries that mention his story. The Doom universe is not over. They can tell many other stories. So for now, we can just enjoy what they started in Doom 2016 and ended with The Ancient Gods Part 2. Now that the interview stuff is over with, let's talk about a few other topics regarding The Ancient Gods Part 2. Did the Father create other life forms? This is what the lore says in The Ancient Gods Part 1. The Father watched as Jakad fell into darkness and knew it could never happen again. Determined to avoid a similar result for the earthly realm, the Father blessed his newest experiment with mortal pains and misfortunes, so that his new creations would treasure life, empathy, and peace. There's another codex entry that states this: when the Father willingly gave up his throne in Urdak, and with the aid of his loyal servant Samur Maker, he was deconstructed into the AI known as Vega. In this form, he obscured himself from the vision of the Dark Lord and maintained a close watch over his creations on Earth. This heavily implies that the life forms of Earth were created by the Father, so they would value the meaning of life and experience what it's like to be mortal. So what happened to the Slayer at the end? Why did he collapse and not disappear like the other demons? Well, he's not entirely an evil being created by Davath. He was merely modified in a divinity machine. The Father had taken a piece from his creator before Davath was sealed away. This contained the power of the Dark Lord, and it was contained within the coffins of Urdak.
They sealed me away, stole my power and name. And now, the time has come for a reckoning.
The Dark Lord told the Khan Maker about a chosen one that would destroy her. But there was one way to find this beast. Creating the divinity machine was part of that false salvation. The Dark Lord guided the Khan Maker to the location of the piece containing his power. This was the source of power for the divinity machine later on. Samur Maker was then influenced by the Dark Lord to free the Outlander and bring him to the divinity machine. He changed the polarity on the machine, and this power of the Dark Lord was then transferred into the Slayer during the procedure. Why did Samur do this? Well, because of his vision. The Khan Maker will lead us to ruin. He thought doing this was the right way to stop her. He's not a pure demon like the others, but he is linked to Davath. So when he killed Davath in the end, he collapsed. It seems that without the Dark Lord, the Slayer is severely weakened. His strength, speed, and power faded away. His body now resides in a sarcophagus, and there he shall remain throughout the ages, as he once did before. The symbol on the divinity machine is the same one you see on the Dark Lord's back. So the true purpose of this device was to create a being with similar power to Davath, a way he could exact his revenge on those who betrayed him. The Slayer and the Dark Lord are connected together by the power of Davath. This is why the Father is not affected by the death of Davath. The Father was a deity for Urdak, not for Jakad or Hell. Only the creations of Hell are affected when the Dark Lord is defeated, because they are creations of that world. The Wraiths were a topic that was quickly mentioned in the lore, but they did not go deep into it. I wanted to know more about this species, like what else do they do? What is their purpose? Why did they not leave Argent D'Nur? Was their ship that damaged? Where did they come from? And why are the images of seraphs with them? It's a topic that left me with more questions. And what about the demonic crucible? Was the last prophecy simply leading up to the ending of Doom 2016, where Samuel Hayden would be consumed by his fascination about the crucible and just take it from you? Is that what the last prophecy meant?
Yet even as the Doomslayer revels in the spoils of this war, another shall rise from the fires, a dark priest consumed by the crucible, and even the Doomslayer shall weep in his shadow.
In my opinion, no. The prophecy seems to imply that there's more to this story, but the demonic crucible is what plays a role into this. If the prophecy was just foreseeing the ending of Doom 2016, then it does not match entirely, because nobody has claimed the demonic crucible to be consumed by it. So, with the demonic crucible still being left behind on the Fortress of Doom, I believe they could make either the Father or Samur Maker a new enemy. I believe either one can be that dark priest who rises and becomes consumed by the crucible, which would create a new enemy, so this could be a way to extend the story in the future. Now, let's talk about the final boss battle with the Dark Lord. I was hoping there were actual changes to the mechanics at some point. Because of the Codex entry from Ancient Gods Part 1, we did see Davoth in different armor and another crucible, so I was hoping at some point we would fight some kind of humanoid form like that. But when it was the same boss battle repeated multiple times just with more enemies, it kind of dragged on for me, and at some point I thought, I just want this to end. However, it was nice to fight an opponent that had similar abilities as you. Yes, that constant health regen did make the battle longer than I would have liked, but anyways. Since we had the hammer, I guess there was some expectation to have a hammer versus crucible battle, or something like that. What about the whole thing with the Dark Lord requiring the use of a battle armor suit? If you look back at the first DLC, the Father did say this: the Dark Lord is the leader of Hell's armies. Not a king, but a warrior of the Dark Realm. So, if he is this legendary warrior, does that imply he is only this good with that battle armor suit? Well, I think the suit was something made during the time Jakad prospered under his rule. The Codex does say this: alone, Jakad's minds achieved great marvels as they sought to create a paradise. We know he has access to advanced technology, so maybe the suit is something extra. Perhaps he is a great warrior, but since his power is transferred into the Slayer, now Davoth only has the suit for any combat situations. What about the Wretch? Hugo did say this during one of his live streams. We didn't really go into it. The Wretch is the one who fashions your armor originally, and I will say that is one that has been left on the table so far. It is the person who made your armor initially, way back in Argent d'Nur, when you're with the Sentinels, but didn't really go into who that character was. I went over this topic in a previous video, and how this most likely points to Valen, when the Dark Lord says this in one Slayer testament: the Wretch who shall not be named. I think this is talking about Valen because he betrayed his own people and also Hell by possibly being the one who forges the Slayer's armor or just upgrades it. Here's another thing. In Doom 2016's Codex entry about Argent d'Nur, one of the Corax tablets mentions the word Wretch. All falls before the command of Hell, for our power is absolute, our march to victory inevitable. Before our armies, even the elemental wraiths of Argent d'Nur were subjugated. In that great victory, the Night Sentinels, protectors of the wraiths, were betrayed by one of their own, and the wretches wept as we devoured their world and took the well for our devices. None stand against us, for treachery resides in all things, and we shall set it free. It says, the wretches wept as we devoured their world. This is referring to the Argentine people, so who amongst them could be despised by the Sentinels and by the Dark Lord? Possibly Commander Valen, because he betrayed the Sentinels and Hell. And also, he is the most likely connection to the person that could have forged or upgraded the Slayer's armor to help him fight the forces of Hell. Here's the last topic I want to cover. Who are the other Dark Lords? There are various Codex entries that mention other Lords of Hell. This took place over different ages. One of the Slayer Testaments in Doom 2016 says this: in his ravenous hatred he found no peace, and with boiling blood he scoured the umbral plains, seeking vengeance against the Dark Lords who had wronged him. He wore the crown of the Night Sentinels, and those that tasted the bite of his sword named him the Doomslayer. The Codex in Doom 2016 about the Baron of Hell says this: the Barons of Hell are the current royal guard of the unknown Dark Lord of the Fourth Age. The Codex in Doom 2016 about the Necropolis on page 2 says this: imagine yourself worshipping before the icon of sin, in awe of its splendor, even as it sleeps till the call of ages comes. envision chanting the names of Dark Lords in the correct order, empowering them with your rote learning. When Davath was sealed away in Jakad and his soul sphere placed within the Tome of Souls, there were other demons who took the title of the Dark Lord. His name, title, or status was taken by others over the course of history. So why is there nothing mentioned about the other Dark Lords? Who were they, and what were their goals? That's a question that still remains. With all the power the Doomslayer has, he defeated the forces of heaven, the demons of hell, and the Dark Lord. But there are still others who are above all. What's up, everyone? We're back talking about the lore within Doom Eternal. This video will cover questions about the story which are not explained in the game. These questions were brought up during Hugo Martin's latest live stream. A good portion of the stream at the start was Hugo explaining the team's decision as to why they patched the Ancient Gods Part 1. If you don't know, they simply removed some tough enemy spawn encounters to make them a little bit easier for new players. The base campaign is really meant to be an even playing field for all Doom fans. But if you want a real challenge, then that's what Master levels are for. They are still going to make adjustments to that change later on. During his run on Urdak, Josh Boyle brought up the topic of the pallets within a corridor, which are very different. Hugo responded saying that it was supposed to resemble the inside of a body. This is linked to how the Makers started as an AI that became organic beings. They are seen as an alien race, and the world they create is synthetic. Now let's move on to the topic of the Dark Lord and the Doom Guy. So the Dark Lord did not make the Doom Guy. He made the Doom Slayer. There's a difference there, by his powers being transferred into the Doom Slayer through the Divinity Machine. Another topic of discussion which gets a lot of attention is why they look similar. The reason they look alike is hinted in the Codex, but it's only a partial answer. It says this: if it came to pass that the Dark Lord were ever reincarnated in physical form, only another prime evil or something more powerful could slay him. Hugo Martin also left us with a big question. Who creates prime evils? He chose to not answer this question and just leave us with another big mystery. This seems to give the idea that all other prime evils might look like Davath, or maybe this was the only time this occurred. Like I said, Hugo only gave us a partial answer to this question. But this might be answered in the Ancient Gods Part 2. When the Doom Slayer meets up with Davath at the throne room on Emora, if you look at the subtitles of the Seraphs within this area, they are labeled as the Ancient Gods. These images are also seen within the crystal ship of the Wraiths. It's just a theory, but I think the Ancient Gods, which might be the Seraphs, are the ones who created Davath and other primevals. Here's another bit of backstory. When the Khan Maker is defeated on Urdak, we hear a voice scream out, "No." This was originally set as Mysterious Voice, but in one of the patches, it was changed to the Dark Lord. This caused some confusion because the Dark Lord wanted the Maker race destroyed as they betrayed him long ago. It was then reverted back to Mysterious Voice because it's not supposed to be labeled as the Dark Lord. To clear this up, Hugo Martin said this: the idea that there is something beyond that could be overlooking all this is what that voice is meant to tease. Someone greater than or a step beyond Davath and the Maker. Like, who's to say that voice is evil or good or who they are? So that voice belongs to someone else. There's more to the Doom story than what is explained in the lore. The topic of Daisy was brought up. The question is about why the Slayer can see Daisy in the game. Hugo said, "I think it's in his head." Now, while it's not a clear answer, it can be interpreted as Daisy being a possible hallucination of the Slayer. He's just seeing images of something he lost long ago, and the memories still haunt him to this day. There's a picture under the desk on the Fortress of Doom. The lore does not say who that is, but Hugo clears it up. He simply says this: it was his wife and kid before all of this stuff happened. One topic I was really curious about is that giant body found on Urdak. There are still many mysteries within Doom Eternal, and this was one of them for the past year. Back in 2020, I did 2 videos covering this topic. The color of the liquid has shades of pink and purple, along with some type of residue at the surface and some mist above it. Steam can be seen in some areas. This could be due to warm temperature or there's some type of chemical reaction. The residue at the surface could be tissue that came off the body. One theory back then was that this liquid is meant to preserve the body. Another theory is it could have been the first Conmaker body. Then its genetic makeup would be used to create future Conmakers. If it was the first Conmaker body, that would make it millions of years old. Maybe it was the Conmaker that was supposed to replace the current one, or a cloned body used for another purpose. When Hugo Martin reached this area in his live stream, he gave us the final answer to this question. He said this: "That is a former Con. There's always a Con that leads the Makers, but they're not supposed to rule forever. When the father leaves, the Conmaker takes over. But as it's said in the lore, this Conmaker does not want to give up their role of leadership. Without the father, they cannot create another Conmaker after the last one. So this Conmaker made a deal with Hell. The Makers would conquer worlds for Hell to devour. The souls of the innocents are used to create Argent energy. Argent energy is then used to avoid their transfiguration process. This would keep the current Conmaker alive, since they cannot make future Cons without the father." Hugo also said this about the giant being: "TBD as to whether or not that particular maker had gone through transfiguration. In my mind, that's what they become, like giant Cthulhu monsters, and even worse than that." I also want to look back at the Seraphs. The lore says this about them: the very first creations molded from the void in Urdak, Seraphs are bound to the Father's will. In order to prevent the Seraphs from seeking power, the Father ordered that they serve any who reach the Luminarium. The reason I bring this up is that when you meet up with the Dark Lord in the throne room of Emora, the subtitles have those Seraphs labeled as the Ancient Gods. We also see special Seraphs within the crystal ship where you find the Wraiths. They seem to appear anywhere of great importance. So I'm wondering if the Seraphs, or another version of the Seraphs, could be the beings who are above Davath. Perhaps they created him as the first being. Then later on, he made his own creations, one of them being the Father who betrayed him later on. This gives me more reason to believe that they are the true gods among all. But keep in mind, this last part about the Seraphs is just a theory that I wanted to add. I think there's a lot of unexplained elements in the story of Doom. This surely cannot be the end. We have yet to learn who is above Davath, who was that mysterious voice, and what their purpose is. There are far too many questions still left in the game. This ending in the Ancient Gods Part 2 does not close the book on everything. Like they said before, they have more stories to tell in Doom. But when will we get those answers? Only time will tell. The Doom franchise has spawned many video games, a few novels, and movies, each of them expanding the lore in their own way. I did a lot of videos focusing on the lore of the video games, and I sometimes mentioned the novels. But one thing I wanted to look at is the Doom comic book from 1996. It's a piece of forgotten history because it was so rare at the time, limited to being part of a giveaway back in the day. The cover art features the Doom Marine with no helmet, and his armor is similar to the version of the cover on Doom 2. This is because the shoulder pads are different between the two games. The shoulder pads from the comic book resemble what you see in Doom 2. The comic book story itself was a bit over the top and silly. Issue number 1 was titled Knee Deep in the Dead, which is taken from the first Doom game. So let's have a look at the story of the Doom comic book. The story begins by jumping right into the action. The Doom Marine is fighting an imp while using the Berserker Pack. Who's a man and a half? I'm a man and a half. Berserker packing man and a half. There's nothing wrong with you that I can't fix with my hands. Dynamite! I'm cooking with gas. I've got a handful of vertebrae and a head full of mad. Yeah, that's your spinal cord, baby. Dig it. Who's the man? I'm the man. I'm a bad man. How bad? Real bad. I'm a 12.0 on the 10.0 scale of badness. Don't need a gun. Guns are for wusses. Huh? What's that? What's that? I like what I see. An important looking door. Knock knock. Who's there? Me. Me. He then comes face to face with a cyber demon, but the battle is very short. Cyber demon? Big deal. He's slim pickings. Rip and tear. Rip and tear. Rip and tear. Rip and tear your guts. You are huge. That means you have huge guts. Oh, here it comes. Here comes the night train. Bonk. Berserker pack gone. Feelings of invincibility over. Change of plans. I do need a gun. I need a big gun. I need a really big gun. After running off to another room, he's still looking for more guns, and he does find some, but he's got to get them off the zombies first. Gah! Zombies with guns. Not big guns, but they are guns, and I need guns. Ah, Chainsaw, the great communicator. Come here, boys. I got something to say. Allow me to communicate to you my desire to have your guns. Got a gun. Need a bigger gun. Moving right along. Dark. Might makes light, and I feel mighty. Groovy. At this particular moment in time, I don't believe I have a healthier or more deeply felt respect for any object in the universe than this here shotgun. Hey, chain gun. The hell with the respect. Gimme. Come on, gimme. Hoy, hoy, I'm the boy, packing 80 pounds of heavenly joy. Now this is good. Big gun. Not the big gun, but... Arrgh! Turn my back. That was stupid. Stupid. Stupid imp. You're stupid. And you're gonna be stupid. And dead. Dance. Dance, Bone Daddy. Oh yeah. Yeah. Dig the prowess. The capacity for violence. I'm the man. I'm super bad. Imps? Zombies? You think you can get me? Wait. Maybe they don't think. Well, I do, and I think you're dead. Dead. Lord Almighty, I feel my temperature rising. Huh? What's that? Woo, baby, I'm burning out of control. Unknown to him, another demon comes behind him and tackles our hero into a pit of radioactive waste. He shoots it as he falls, destroying the creature in the process. Bad monster. Gah! Radioactive waste. Burns. Stinks. Get off, scum. Who do you suppose left all that radioactive waste down there, and why? Why? Now I'm radioactive. That can't be good. Why can't we find a way to safely dispose of radioactive waste and protect the environment? Even if I personally stop this alien invasion, what kind of planet will we be leaving to our children and our children's children and, oh, the humanity? The humanity! My big gun is out of bullets! I can't believe it. Better believe it, soldier. The only thing I believe is I need another gun. No guns here. Teleporter pad. I'm gone. All right then. I'm all about that plasma rifle, and baby, it's all about me. Sweet Christmas. Big mouth floating thingies. It's always something. Ooh, I like it. The sugar sweet kiss of heavy ordnance. Aha, I'm cooking with plasma. Now we're in the big leagues. Wow, now I'm in a completely different place. more stupid radioactive waste. And with my luck, some creatures probably. A specter! Invisible son of a... Stinking specter! Gonna get what you deserve! I've blown up everything in here. Blow up that specter real good. I have really had just about all I can take. Hail to the chief. There, the most beautiful sight any soldier can behold. The gun, the big gun. You want a piece of me? Come on, come on, come at me with it. Oh yeah, do you get it now? Papa's got a brand new bag. Death surrounds me, yet in my head I hear something that sounds like angels. I have found the holy grail of firepower. My eyes can but weep as they bear witness to the majesty, the BFG 9000. As I stride knee-deep through the dead, all is clear. I know what must be done. My cause is just. My will is strong. And my gun is very, very large. Seconds later, the Doom Marine encounters the Cyberdemon one more time. But this time, the outcome should be different. Let loose your volley of death, Cyberdemon. You struggle in vain. Righteousness and superior firepower has triumphed. The filthy beast is no more. Victory is mine. Yet, Earth remains besieged by creatures unspeakably foul. It will take a strong man to bring the light of freedom back to this planet. A strong man with the biggest, baddest gun in the world. Amen to that. The end. The comic book story was actually pretty funny and I liked it. We got to see a few demons and weapons from the game. But did you like the comic book story? Tell me in the comment section. Next up, let's look at some history related to the comic book. Some sources online say that there were two separate printings of the comic book, the original for a giveaway, and years later it was reprinted for the id Anthology, which is basically a package full of other items. Like 4 CDs, which included 19 games before Doom 3. This includes Quake, Wolfenstein 3D, Rescue Rover, Soldax, all the games in the Commander Keen series, all the classic Doom games, and a few others. You could say it was the games that id Software was heavily involved with, which is why games like Heretic and Hexen were not included in this bundle, since those were titles developed by Raven Software. Amongst these items, you would also find a black t-shirt with the id Anthology logo, 2 separate dog tags, an id Anthology phone card, a miniature of the Cyberdemon, a poster, a short book about the history of id Software called The Book of Id, and also the Doom comic book. A few websites also listed that there were 2 versions of the Anthology collection, the later one having an updated version of the TNT and Plutonia WAD files with just a few bug fixes. There's a few differences between the original and the reprint version of the comic book. The original comic had advertisements for Hexen on the inside cover and Final Doom for PlayStation on the back cover, but the id Anthology reprint changed the ads around for other PC games from their Windows 95 versions. The other difference between the 2 versions is the contrast level of the colors, and the font on the warning and issue number are slightly changed. In the original version, only the issue number is in italic, which means it's slanted, but the warning up top is normal. But in the reprint version, the issue number font is normal, but the warning up top is in italic. Italic font is just slanted or leaning on an angle. Some lines from the comic book were then used for achievement names in the Xbox versions of Doom 2. Here's a few that I found that are linked to each other. The achievement, A Man and a Half, was taken from the first page of the comic, where the Doom Marine is using his Berserker pack to take out some demons. The achievement called An Important Looking Door is a line taken from page 2 of the comic book, then shortly after, he kicks through it. The next one is Rip and Tear. It's taken from page 3 of the comic book, when the Doom Marine meets the Cyberdemon. The line Rip and Tear would later become a popular meme within the Doom community. This other achievement, "You Have Huge Guts," is said by the Doomarine right before he attacks the Cyberdemon, and the requirement for this achievement is to defeat a Cyberdemon with your fists in single player. When the Berserker pack wears off, he changes his plan, and this next achievement is linked to when he says, "I do need a gun. I need a big gun. I need a really big gun." On page 4 of the comic book, the Doomarine searches for guns, but the only available ones are from zombies. He picks up a chainsaw and says this, "Ah, chainsaw, the great communicator." He then uses the chainsaw on some zombies. Part of this line was used in another achievement. If we look at page 7 in the comic book, our hero gets a hold of the chain gun and he says this, "Hoy hoy, I'm the boy, packing 80 pounds of heavenly joy." This line also appears as an achievement name. After defeating an imp with the chain gun, the Doomarine says, "Oh yeah, yeah, dig the prowess, the capacity for violence. I'm the man, I'm super bad." The last two words, "I'm super bad," were used for another achievement name. At the bottom of page 9, he fires off his chain gun while saying this, "Woo baby, I'm burning out of control." The last 4 words appear as another achievement name. On page 10, a demon catches him off guard and tackles the Doomarine before he can retaliate. As they fall together, he says this line, "Bad, bad monster." Both of them fall into a pool of radioactive waste. When he pulls himself out of that area, the Doomarine mentions the waste affecting him by saying this, "Now I'm radioactive. That can't be good." After he acquires the BFG 9000, he goes back to search for the Cyberdemon, and on the last page of the comic book, he uses it and wins, but also follows up with this line, "Righteousness and superior firepower has triumphed. The filthy beast is no more." Part of this line was used for another achievement name, but the requirements were different depending on the version of the game you had. While the cover does say number 1, you would think they might have more issues after this, but all the sources I read online say that this was a one-time story. So that covers every topic I can think of within the Ancient Gods Part 1 and Part 2 of Doom Eternal. I did include some theories which could connect to the story in some way. Even though the saga of the Doomslayer is over for now, there are still many questions that remain. Perhaps someday we might get those answers. But if you reach the end of this video, leave the comment, "Made it to the end," and I will heart your comment in return. Thank you so much for watching. This is Carlos or Acid Glow, and I'll see you in the next video.